In problem 42, we're asked to decide whether or not this green identity is true or false. In other words, does the left side, when simplified, equal secant squared of theta? And so what we're going to do is we're going to work on this left side and see if we can simplify it down to secant squared of theta. What I usually like to do is write these things in terms of sine and cosine. That's where my brain functions more naturally. So the secant of theta can be written as a 1 over cosine theta. The tangent of theta can be written as sine of theta over cosine of theta. So we have a common denominator there. That's important to see. In the denominator, we have cotangent theta, which is cosine theta over sine theta. And then, of course, the cosine is already written in terms of cosine. Okay, now what I'm going to do is rewrite that cosine theta down in the bottom that's all by itself as the fraction cosine theta sine theta over sine theta. All I did is multiply by a form of 1 there, but now I have the same denominator for both of those fractions. So we can factor the numerator and get 1 over cosine theta times 1, that's this guy, plus sine theta, which is this guy. And the denominator, we can factor a 1 over sine theta, and we'll end up with a cosine theta, that's from this one, plus a cosine theta sine theta. That's from this one. Okay, now, bear with me here. This 1 over cosine theta over 1 over sine theta simplifies to sine theta over cosine theta, which we're later going to turn into a tangent theta. So we're pretty much done with this part of this problem. And then notice that there's a common factor of cosine theta left in the denominator. So as I rewrite this green part, the 1 plus sine theta will stay, and then I'm going to factor out that cosine theta so that I have another 1 plus sine theta from this guy. And so now you see that I have a 1 plus sine theta binomial here and a 1 plus sine theta binomial here. Those two bad boys will cancel. And I'm left with a sine over cosine times a 1 over cosine. Sine theta over cosine theta times a 1 over cosine theta. And you can rewrite those with their reciprocal identities as tangent theta times secant theta. And that's the best we can do. Tangent theta times secant theta does not equal secant squared theta. That much I know. That would mean this tangent theta would need to actually be another secant theta, and it's not. So this is a huge false. All right, the answer to our question is this identity true or not? And the answer is no, it's false. Because when I work it out, I end up with something that cannot possibly equal secant squared theta. Okay, well, this was not an easy problem. Lots of fancy algebra going on here. You have to get used to this idea of factoring even when there's nothing there. And that's going to take some time to get used to, especially if you're a little rusty with your algebra. If it's been a while since you did a lot of factoring, this is going to be challenging. And it just takes experience, and we're going to keep practicing. If you need me for anything, you know where to find me. In the meantime, take care.